There was said to be a new arrival on the esplanade, a lady with a dog. After spending a fortnight at Yalta, Dmitry Gurov had quite settled in and was now beginning to take an interest in new faces. As he sat outside Vernet's cafe, he saw a fair-haired young woman, not tall, walking on the promenade wearing a beret with a white Pomeranian dog trotting after her. Then he encountered her several times a day in the municipal park and square. She walked alone, always with that beret, always with the white Pomeranian. Who she was, no one knew. Everyone just called her the dog lady. If she has no husband or friends here, she might be worth picking up, calculated Gurov. He was still in his 30s, but had a 12-year-old daughter and 2 schoolboy sons. His marriage had been arranged early during his second college year, and now his wife seemed half as old again as he. She was a tall, dark-browed woman, outspoken, earnest, stolid, and, she maintained, an, quote, intellectual, end of quote. She was a great reader. She favored spelling reform. She called her husband Demetrius instead of plain Dmitri, while he privately thought her narrow-minded, inelegant, and slow on the uptake. He was afraid of her and disliked being at home. He had begun deceiving her long ago, and his infidelities were frequent, which is probably why he nearly always spoke so disparagingly of women, calling them an, quote, inferior species, end of quote, when the subject cropped up. He felt, sufficiently schooled by bitter experience to call them any name he liked, yet he still couldn't live 2 days on end without his, quote, inferior species, end of quote. Men's company bored him, making him ill at ease, tongue-tied, and apathetic, whereas with women he felt free. He knew what to talk about, how to behave. He even found it easy to be with them without talking at all. In his appearance and character, in his whole nature, there was an alluring, elusive element which charmed and fascinated women. He knew it, and he was himself strongly attracted in return. As experience, multiple and, in the full sense of the word, bitter, had long since taught him, every intimacy which so pleasantly diversifies one's life, which seems so easy, so delightfully adventurous at the outset, such an intimacy does, when reasonable people are involved, not least Muscovites, so hesitant and slow off the mark, develop willy-nilly into some vast, extraordinarily complex problem until the whole business finally becomes quite an ordeal. Somehow, though, on every new encounter with an attractive woman, all this experience went for nothing. He wanted a bit of excitement, and it all seemed so easy and amusing. Well, he was eating in an open-air restaurant late one afternoon when the lady in the beret sauntered along and took the next table. Her expression, walk, clothes, hairstyle, all told him that she was socially presentable, married, in Yalta for the first time, alone, and bored. Much nonsense is talked about the looseness of morals in these parts, and he despised such stories, knowing that they were largely fabricated by people who would have been glad to misbehave themselves, given the aptitude. But when the young woman sat down at the next table 3 paces away, he recalled those tales of trips into the mountains and easy conquests. The seductive thought of a swift, fleeting affair, or the romance with a stranger whose very name you don't know, suddenly possessed him. He made a friendly gesture to the dog. It came up. He wagged his finger. The dog growled, and Gurov shook his finger again. The lady glanced at him, lowered her eyes at once. He doesn't bite? Excuse me, that wasn't a question, I'm sorry. He doesn't bite, she blushed. May I give him a bone? She nodded. Have you been in Yalta long, madam? He asked courteously. 5 days. Oh, I've nearly survived my first fortnight. There was a short pause. Time goes quickly, but it is so boring, she said, not looking at him. That's what they all say. What a bore this place is. Your average tripper from Belyov, Zhizdra, or somewhere, he doesn't know what boredom means till he comes here. Then it's, oh, what a bore, oh, what dust. You might think he'd just blown in from sunny Spain. She laughed. Then both continued their meal in silence, as strangers. After dinner, though, they left together and embarked on the bantering chat of people who feel free and easy, who don't mind where they go or what they talk about. As they strolled, they discussed the strange light on the sea. The water was of a soft, warm, mauve hue. crossed by a stripe of golden moonlight. How sultry it was after the day's heat, they said. Gurov described himself as a Muscovite who had studied literature but worked in a bank. He had once trained as an opera singer but had given that up and owned 2 houses in Moscow. From her, he learnt that she had grown up in St. Petersburg but had married in the provincial town where she had now been living for 2 years, that she was staying in Yalta for another month, that her husband, who also wanted a holiday, might come and fetch her. She was quite unable to explain her husband's job. Was it with the county council or the rural district? And even she saw the funny side of this. Gurov also learnt that she was called Anne. In his hotel room afterwards, he thought about her. He was very likely to meet her tomorrow, bound to. As he went to bed, he remembered that she had not long left boarding school, that she had been a schoolgirl like his own daughter. Remembered, too, how much shyness and stiffness she still showed when laughing and talking to a stranger. This must be her first time ever alone in such a place, with men following her around, watching her, talking to her, all with a certain privy aim which she could not fail to divine. He remembered her slender, frail neck, her lovely gray eyes. You can't help feeling sorry for her, though, he thought, and dozed off. A week had passed since their first meeting. It was a Sunday or some other holiday. Indoors was stifling and outside flurries of dust swept the streets, whipping off hats. It was a thirsty day, and Gurov kept calling in at the cafe to fetch Anne a soft drink or an ice cream. There was no escaping the heat. In the evening, things were a little easier, and they went on the pier to watch a steamer come in. There were a lot of people hanging around on the landing stage. They were here to meet someone and held bunches of flowers. 2 features of the Yalta Smart Set were now thrown into sharp relief. The older women dressed like young ones. There were lots of generals. As the sea was rough, the steamer arrived late, after sunset, and maneuvered for some time before putting in at the jetty. Anne watched boat and passengers through her lorgnette as if seeking someone she knew. Whenever she turned to Gurov, her eyes shone. She spoke a lot, asking quick-fire questions and immediately forgetting what they were. Then she lost her lorgnette, dropped it in the crowd. The gaily dressed gathering dispersed, no more faces could be seen, and the wind dropped completely while Gurov and Anne stood as if waiting for someone else to disembark. Anne had stopped talking and sniffed her flowers without looking at Gurov. "The weather's better now that it's evening," said he. "So where shall we go? How about driving somewhere?" She did not answer. Then he stared at her hard, embraced her suddenly, and kissed her lips. The scent of her flowers, their dampness, enveloped him, and he immediately glanced around fearfully. Had they been observed? "Let's go to your room," he said softly. They set off quickly together. Her room was stuffy and smelt of the scent which she had brought in the Japanese shop. What encounters one does have in life, thought Gurov as he looked at her now. He still retained memories of the easygoing, light-hearted women in his past. Women happy in their love and grateful to him for that happiness, however brief. He also recalled those who, like his wife, made love insincerely, with idle chatter, affectations, and hysteria, their expressions conveying that this was neither love nor passion, but something more significant. He thought of 2 or 3 very beautiful, frigid women whose faces would suddenly flash a rapacious, stubborn look of lust to seize, to snatch more from life than it can give. Women no longer young, these, fractious, unreasonable, overbearing and obtuse. When Gurov had cooled towards them, their beauty had aroused his hatred, and the lace on their underclothes had looked like a lizard's scales. In this case, though, all was hesitancy, the awkwardness of inexperienced youth. There was the impression of her being taken aback, too, as by a sudden knock on the door. Anne, this, quote, lady with a dog, end of quote, had her own special view, a very serious one, of what had happened. She thought of it as her, quote, downfall, end of quote, it seemed, which was all very strange and inappropriate. Her features had sunk and faded. Her long hair drooped sadly down each side of her face. She had struck a pensive, despondent pose, like the woman taken in adultery in an old-fashioned picture. "This is all wrong," she said. "Now you'll completely despise me." There was a watermelon on the table. Gurov cut a slice and slowly ate. Half an hour at least passed in silence. He found Anne touching. She had that air of naive innocence of a thoroughly nice, unworldly woman. A solitary candle, burning on the table, barely lit her face, but it was obvious that she was ill at ease. "Why should I lose respect for you?" asked Gurov. "You don't know what you're saying." "God forgive me," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "This is terrible." "You seem very much on the defensive, Anne." "How can I defend what I've done? I'm a bad, wicked woman. I despise myself, and I'm not trying to make excuses. It's not my husband. It is myself I've deceived. I don't just mean what happened here. I've been deceiving myself for a long time. My husband may be a good, honorable man, but he is such a worm. What he does at that job of his, I don't know. All I know is he's a worm. I was 20 when I married him. I longed to know more of life. Then I wanted something better. There must be a different life, mustn't there? Or so I told myself. I wanted a little, well, rather more than a little excitement. I was avid for experience. You won't understand me, I'm sure, but I could control myself no longer, I swear. Something had to happen to me. There was no holding me. So I told my husband I was ill and I came here. And I've been going around here in a daze as if I was off my head. But now I'm just another vulgar, worthless woman whom everyone is free to despise. Gurov was bored with all this. He was irritated by the naive air, the unexpected, uncalled-for remorse. But for the tears in her eyes, he might have thought her to be joking or play-acting. "I don't understand," said he softly. "What is it you want?" She hid her face on his breast and clung to him. "Please, please believe me," she implored. "I long for a decent moral life. Sin disgusts me. I don't know what I'm doing myself. The common people say the, quote, evil one, end of quote, tempted them. And now I can say the same. I was tempted by the evil one." There, that's enough," he muttered. He looked into her staring, frightened eyes, kissed her, spoke softly and gently. She gradually relaxed and cheered up again. Both laughed. Then they went out. The promenade was deserted. The town with its cypresses looked quite dead, but the sea still roared, breaking on the beach. A single launch with a sleepily glinting lamp tossed on the waves. They found a cab and drove to Oreanda. "I've only just discovered your surname downstairs in your hotel," Gurov told her. "Von Diederitz, it says on the board. Is your husband German?" "No, his grandfather was, I think, but he's Russian." They sat on a bench near the church at Oreanda, gazing silently down at the sea. Yalta was barely visible through the dawn mist. White clouds hung motionless on the mountain peaks. Not a leaf stirred on the trees. Cicadas chirped. Borne up from below, the sea's monotonous, muffled boom spoke of peace, of the everlasting sleep awaiting us. Before Yalta or Oreanda yet existed, that surf had been thundering down there. It was roaring away now, and it will continue its dull booming with the same unconcern when we are no more. This persistence, this utter aloofness from all our lives and deaths. Do they perhaps hold the secret pledge of our eternal salvation, of life's perpetual motion on earth, of its uninterrupted progress? As he sat there, lulled and entranced by the magic panorama, sea, mountains, clouds, broad sky, beside a young woman who looked so beautiful in the dawn, Gurov reflected that everything on earth is beautiful, really, when you consider it. Everything except what we think and do ourselves, when we forget the lofty goals of being and our human dignity. Someone, a watchman no doubt, came up, looked at them, went away. Even this incident seemed mysterious, beautiful too. In the dawn, they saw a steamer arrive from Feodosia, its lights already extinguished. "There's dew on the grass," Anne said after a pause. "Yes, time to go home." They went back to town. After this, they met on the promenade each noon, lunched, dined, strolled, enthused about the sea together. She complained of sleeping badly, of palpitations, disturbed by jealousy and by the fear that he did not respect her enough. She kept repeating the same old questions, and often in the square or gardens, when there was nobody near them, he would suddenly draw her to him and kiss her ardently. This utter idleness, these kisses in broad daylight, these glances over the shoulder, this fear of being seen, the heat, the sea's smell, the repeated glimpses of idle, elegant, sleek persons, it all seemed to revitalize him. He told Anne how pretty she was, how provocative. He was impetuous. He was passionate. He never left her side, while she was forever brooding and begging him to admit that he did not respect her, that he loved her not at all, that he could see in her no more than a very ordinary woman. Late, almost every evening, they would drive out of town to Oreanda or the waterfall. These trips were invariably a great success, leaving an impression of majesty and beauty. They had been expecting the husband to arrive, but he sent a letter to say that he had eye trouble and begged his wife to come home soon. Anne bestirred herself. "It's just as well I am leaving," she told Gurov. "This is fate." She left by carriage and he drove with her. This part of her journey took all day. When she took her seat in the express train, which was due to leave in 5 minutes, she asked to look at him once more. One last look, that's right. She did not cry, but was so sad that she seemed ill. Her face quivered. "I'll think of you, I'll remember you," she said. "God bless and keep you. Don't think ill of me. We're parting forever. We must, because we should never have met at all. God bless you." The train departed swiftly, its lights soon vanishing and its noise dying away within a minute, as though everything had conspired to make a quick end of that sweet trance, that madness. Alone on the platform, gazing into the dark distance, Gurov heard the chirp of grasshoppers and the hum of telegraph wires, feeling as if he had just awoken. Well, there went another adventure or episode in his life, he reflected. It too had ended. Now only the memory was left. He was troubled, sad, somewhat penitent. This young woman whom he would never see again. She hadn't been happy with him now, had she? He had treated her kindly and affectionately, and yet his attitude to her, his tone, his caresses had betrayed a faint irony, the rather crude condescension of your conquering male, of a man nearly twice her age into the bargain. She had kept calling him kind, exceptional, noble. So she hadn't seen him as he really was, obviously, and he must have been deceiving her without meaning to. Here at the station there was already a whiff of autumn in the air, and the evening was cool. It's time I went north too, thought Gurov, leaving the platform. High time. Back home in Moscow, it was already like winter. The stoves were alight. It was dark when his children breakfasted and got ready for school in the morning, so their nanny lit the light for a short time. The frosts had begun. It is always such a joy to see the white ground and white roofs when the snow first falls. On that first day of sleigh riding, the air is so fresh and good to breathe, and you remember the years of your youth, white with frost. The old limes and birches have a kindly look. They are dearer to your heart than any cypresses or palm trees. And near them, you no longer hanker after mountains and sea. A Moscow man himself, Gurov had come home on a fine frosty day. He put on his fur coat and warm gloves and strolled down the Petrovka. He heard church bells pealing on Saturday evening, and his recent trip, all the places he had visited, lost all charm for him. He plunged deeper and deeper into Moscow life. He was zealously reading his 3 newspapers on principle. He felt the lure of restaurants, clubs, dinner parties, anniversary celebrations. He was flattered to be visited by famous lawyers and actors, flattered to play cards with a professor at the doctor's club. He could tackle a large helping of Moscow hot pot straight from the pan.